برای اینکه در مورد لگرایی و اینکه چجوری بذاریمش کنار تا موفق بشین بیشتر بدونید، حتما این پست رو نگاه بکنید. When most people think of Steve Jobs, they naturally think of Apple. But there is a story about Jobs that's always stuck in my head, and it has nothing to do with Apple. Well, in 1985, Jobs was forced out of Apple after a fierce struggle with John Scully, who was the CEO at that time. In response, Jobs left Apple and took a handful of the employees with him to start a brand new company, which would develop what was called the next computer. This was gonna be a much more powerful computer meant for colleges, and it was housed in a black cube-shaped case. And in Walter Isaacson's biography of Jobs, he recounts how Jobs insisted the black paint that covered the outside of this case also be applied to the inside at extra cost, even though almost no customer would ever open it up and see the paint of themselves. And this story illustrates one of Jobs' most famous qualities, his perfectionism. Jobs demanded absolute perfection of all the hardware and software that he and his team developed. And it's one of the reasons why he was notoriously hard to work for. It's one of the reasons that pushed him to be so cruel to his employees at times. And yet the legacy left behind by Jobs and by all the famous perfectionists often makes perfectionism seem like something worth striving for. That's why I am a perfectionist is one of the classic cop-out answers to question, tell me your greatest weaknesses, like, I just work too hard, man, or I get too much, or the classic, I have no weaknesses. You're gonna understand the rest of this podcast, perfectionism really is a weakness. Perfectionism was aligned with being more motivated at work and putting in more hours. It was also aligned with stress, with burnout, with anxiety, with overworking, and with depression. And to add some anecdotal evidence, I've been a perfectionist for a very long time, and I found some additional drawbacks. Often focus way too intensely on a small part of a project that ultimately doesn't really matter at the end of the day, and it will cause me to waste a lot of time. I'll start writing something down, and then my brain goes, that's not good enough. Your audience has better expectations than that of you. That's not gonna fly. So I want to talk about some ways to get over this perfectionism or start moving past it in this video. And to do that, I think it's important to tell you what a perfectionist really is, because it isn't just somebody who has high standards for themselves. A perfectionist is a person whose standards are high beyond reach or reason, and who strains compulsively and unremittingly towards impossible goals. And this part's very important. Measures their own worth entirely in terms of accomplishment. Perfectionists are the people who are fixated on not failing. They're worried that other people don't think their work is good enough, and by extension, that they aren't good enough either. So the question now is, what can we do about this? Well, the first thing is to work on setting more realistic expectations for yourself. For example, I can't run as fast as Usain Bolt. Although standards and beliefs are subjective, people usually take for granted their interpretations, their beliefs, their predictions. I think the best way to start doing this is to talk to people, ask them, what do you really expect of me? In all, you're making and publishing things and getting feedback on them, and coming back and reviewing them, and this helps you get better. Perfectionists don't get a ton of feedback. I think this is the reason perfectionists don't get as many at-bats. They don't get that feedback that is crucial to growth. So, be imperfect on purpose. Not only are you gonna get that feedback, but each time that you act in an imperfect way, you're going to prove to your brain that imperfection is not the disaster that I thought it would be.
اگر از این بحث ایدئالگرایی خوشتون اومد لایک کنید، ما رو به دوستانتون معرفی بکنید. دوست داشتید دوباره لغاتش رو ببینید یا مرور رو تکرار بکنید تا تو ضمیر ناخودآگاهتون بهتر قرار بگیره، سیو بکنید و حتما به ما بگید که آدمای ایدئالگرا چه خصوصیات منفی دیگه ای دارن. آیا شما هم ایدئالگرایید یا نه؟